Hi there, I'm Danny Flexen. Welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut Flexpectations. We're here every Thursday, 4:30 p.m. to talk about the boxing action to come over the weekend. And it's a pretty busy weekend this week. Starting off with a MTK show tomorrow night in Bolton. Obviously no fans still, as at the moment at least. And I think it's on ESPN Plus and IFL as well, to watch in the UK. But a really good show with two particularly intriguing title fights at the top of the bill. Main event sees Lee McGregor, British and Commonwealth bantamweight champion, take on a challenge for the European title against the long-reigning Karim Guerfi of France. It's a really good fight and a kind of a clash of opposites in that Guerfi's been there, seen it, done it, 34 years old, had same number of, or this will actually be his 34th fight, going up against Lee McGregor, the tough, physically strong and talented Scot, who's only 24, so 10 years his opponent's junior, and as this will be his 10th professional contest, so already won British and Commonwealth and now going in for the European so early in his career. But he's a very promising talent, and I think he's up to the challenge. He was lucky in a sense to get out in August against Ryan the Lion Walker and got a stoppage win there, whereas Guerfi has been inactive for quite a while due to the pandemic, as so many other fighters have. And I think that will play in McGregor's favour as the younger, fresher man anyway. He'll come in, no ring rust, as Guerfi tries to work his way into the fight. McGregor is known to be quite a fast starter, and he may attempt to outbox and bully his opponent. He should have a speed advantage as well. So I expect to see a new European champion crowned. But perhaps the more interesting fight, certainly from a backstory perspective, sees Maxi Hughes, a lot of people's pick for the British fighter of 2020, go up against Paulie Highland Jr. for the vacant British lightweight title. Maxi Hughes, one of very few fighters to get 3 contests in the books last year. Pandemic, what pandemic? The first one was a tune-up, but the second was a well-deserved upset victory on points over John O'Carroll, and then followed it up with, again, going in as the underdog, beating Viktor Kotochikov for the vacant WBC international title, which earned him a world ranking. Hard not to like Maxi Hughes. He's really cool, down-to-earth guy, but also hasn't always had the rub of the green, often had to take fights at short notice. Couple of the losses on his record, pretty contentious as well. And although Kotochikov went on to be stopped early by Gary Cully not too long ago, it was still a good win. As we said, Hughes came in not expected to win by most people, and just seems to have turned his career around under Sean O'Hagan, who is the father and trainer of Josh Warrington, of course. Thriving stable there. So he's going up against Highland Jr. now. As I said, Maxi Hughes got 3 fights done in 2020. Paulie Highland Jr. hasn't been seen since the middle of the previous year, 2019, where he put up a brave effort against the European champion Francesco Patera out in Italy, only to come up short in round 6. And you'll remember Patera was the guy who beat Lewis Ritson for the vacant title, and he's reigned ever since, just coming off a win actually over the former great amateur Domenico Valentino. But yeah, tough fight this for Highland Jr., I would say. 2 defeats on his record, both come by stoppage. Hughes isn't known as a massive puncher, but he is very skillful. Footwork, timing, shot selection, all on point. Best form of his career, coming in off those couple of really good victories. I suppose the only difference in terms of mentality is that he'll enter this one as a significant favourite rather than the underdog with the bookies, but I'm not sure that'll bother him particularly, although he does say he prefers being an outsider. And I expect him to win, possibly a decision, maybe a late stoppage, but I think Maxi Hughes will be crowned, and then I'm guessing the winner will have to defend against Liam Walsh, who was lined up to fight for this vacant belt. He's actually mandated by the board as the mandatory challenger, initially against James Tennyson, and then when Tennyson decided not to take it because he's got a world title eliminator, or he had a world title eliminator, sorry, which he won, Paul Hyland came in, and then Walsh came down with COVID-19, so had to pull out the fight, and Maxi Hughes has stepped in at relatively short notice to take this. But of course, it's short notice in terms of the opponent for Hyland as well. But yeah, hopefully Liam Walsh gets his crack at becoming a two-weight British champion against the winner. And if that is Maxi Hughes, it will be a rematch. Walsh having outpointed Hughes on his comeback not too long ago, 2019, I think. So that's Friday night. And then on Saturday, as well as the big Matchroom show, which I'm going to talk about at length, we see a few Irish fighters fighting abroad. Eric Donovan, who we saw impress everyone at Fight Camp against Zelfa Barrett, and Ray Moylet, both fighting out in Belgium as Belfast promoter Mark Dunlop goes further afield. And good luck to Mark with that show. And Kevin Cronin, who we've interviewed on the channel before, really, really endearing guy. He's fighting out in Luxembourg. So good luck to those guys. I think Scotland's Nick Campbell was supposed to make his debut on the Belgium show. He now may be a late addition to the Wembley show, although that is unconfirmed as I film this now. And before I do talk about the Wembley show, I should also mention a show overseas or in the US. This one headlined by former world champion Maurice Hooker taking on 16-0, 16 knockouts Vergil Ortiz Jr. Great step up for him. Good example of matchmaking. Hooker's only had one fight against moderate opposition since getting beaten down ultimately by Jose Ramirez. No disgrace there. Ramirez is a really good fighter. But Hooker only had that one fight back since. Ortiz been fighting fairly regularly against gradually improving opposition. Has already stopped the likes of Brad Solomon, who's kind of a fringe contender, I suppose, and that sort of level. And just looks to have a bit too much of everything for Hooker at this stage of their respective careers. But we shall see. I think it'll be an entertaining fight for however long it lasts. So getting to the Wembley show, I'm not going to talk too much about the undercard. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Ellie Scotney, as regular viewers will know, and I'm looking forward to seeing her second pro fight against Maëlys Gangloff. And also Ramla Ali fights Scotney's debut opponent, Beck Connolly. So some female boxing interest on the card. And good to see Chris Billum-Smith, Anthony Fowler, Joe Cordina all back out. But it really is, in terms of kind of competitiveness, because the A side are expected to win fairly comfortably for the undercard fights. It really is a main event show, and it's a world title fight on regular Sky Sports in the UK and Ireland, the zone outside, of course. Lawrence Okolie in his 16th pro fight, maybe 15th, I'd have to double check, but it's too late for that now. Already won British, Commonwealth, European titles, so done things the traditional way. Now goes for the vacant WBO title against Krzysztof Glowacki. I don't care how many people want to say Glowacki. That's not how you pronounce it. So I don't, I'm going to say it right, even if everyone else disagrees. But yeah, the Polish southpaw, former world champion in his own right. Although it does seem like an age ago since that upset of Marco Huck way back in, 2015? But still, he's only lost to two fighters. Alexander Usyk, who's the former top man at cruiserweight, unified all the belts. The first one out of those he won against Glowacki, the WBO. Clear points decision. But again, no disgrace there. And the only other person to beat him was in his last fight, way back in 2019 now, in the World Boxing Super Series semi-final. Maurice Hooker, and very controversial defeat that was for Glowacki. Kind of delicately poised going into round two, and then Breedis landed a blatant elbow to Glowacki's head. Not just blatant, but very, very hard as well. And Glowacki was dazed, hit the canvas, was given no additional time to recover. Quickly went down again through punches this time, although still, affected by the elbow. And then was hammered with shots for around 10 seconds after the bell to end the round as well, because referee Robert Bird, having already messed up with his dealing, how he dealt with the elbow, then failed to hear the bell and let Glowacki take undue punishment. He never really recovered, and early in the third round, Breedis finished the job. But yeah, huge asterisk hangs over that result. And Bridis is, even if only on paper, the only orthodox fighter to ever beat Glowacki. Obviously, Usyk, a fellow southpaw. So it's an interesting kind of style matchup. Glowacki, 6 foot, aggressive, powerful southpaw against Okolie, 6'5" with the range to match. Big power, particularly in the right hand. Not always great to watch. I'm sure people will mention that anyway. Tends to kind of fight really well on the outside, but when his opponent's able to get inside that long reach, he can, or he has in the past, kind of held on too much, clung on the inside instead of trying to work with body shots and uppercuts. But we have seen that start to change since he's moved to Shane McGuigan. We've seen him kind of work more at close quarters. We've seen him get out of those kind of tight situations better as well, pivoting, twisting away from his opponents, which is good to see. And he said in many interviews he's taken it on board, the criticism about not being an entertaining fighter and the need to work rather than spoil. And we expect further improvement with that against Glowacki. It is a step up for him. He was supposed to fight Glowacki late last year and ended up taking on a substitute opponent in Nikodem Jizevski, who was well overmatched, as it turned out, very stiff. And Okolie got rid of him in quick fashion, as you should, when a substitute opponent turns out to be inferior. But previous to that, he beat Yves Ngabu for the European title, and that was a very impressive win, I thought. Ngabu was a very solid fighter, came to win, very ambitious, and Okolie just gradually knocked that ambition out of him with hard shots. It was a grueling, messy fight at times, but he got the job done, and it delivered a conclusive finish as well. So now we come to this fight. Glowacki will press the action. He won't need to be encouraged. I think his southpaw stance may give Okolie some problems. Okolie fought a southpaw in his debut, but I'm not sure you can count that as experience, given it only lasted 20 seconds. And the only other guy from the southpaw stance since was Wadi Camacho, who was well overmatched anyway, and is also more of a switch hitter than a traditional southpaw. So he could struggle with the stance of Glowacki early on, but once he gets to grips with that, and I'm sure they've had lots of southpaw sparring in camp, you would expect him to dictate the action more from range, as long as making weight, obviously a huge frame on Okolie, as long as making weight's not getting to him and he lasts the pace well, I think he'll work his way into the fight. I think his right hand, which is mostly effective against southpaws, and it happens to be Okolie's best punch as well, will be very effective as Glowacki comes in. And also, I would have to say the pole isn't your typical kind of awkward, slick southpaw. He's more of an aggressor, more of a brawler, and I think that style should suit Okolie, who can, move in and out, mainly go around the perimeter, box at distance, land his shots to take the wind out of Glowacki's sails. Big body puncher, Glowacki, which is will work well against Okolie, who's not always the easiest target to the head, but it's whether he can get inside to make those body shots count. And if Okolie unloads some body shots of his own to slow Glowacki down from range, I think we could see a stoppage somewhere between rounds 7 and 10. That's what I would go for. But a really, really good main event for what is not a pay-per-view show, which is always good to see. And yeah, I think it could be entertaining as well. I think Glowacki's style could bring out a more entertaining side in Lawrence Okolie. So well worth watching. Obviously, I want to hear your comments, or read them, not hear them. Let me know in the comments box below what you think of the fights over the weekend, which one are you most looking forward to, and what are your predictions for the main fights. So the two main fights on the MTK show, Okolie Glowacki and Ortiz against Hooker. Let me know what you think, and I'll be back on Monday to reflect on all the action in the aptly named Reflections at 4:30 p.m. and in the next Reflections next week Thursday at the same time. Thanks for your time as always, and I'll see you all soon. Cheers.